Welcome to Everything with Everett. This is a talk show podcast hosted by Everett McConaughey. The purpose of this production is to share thoughts, voices, and information to further a discussion on who we are as individuals, communities, and a global society. Everything with Everett is open to all topics of discussion: faith, science, history, finances, social issues, and, well, everything. Be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Visit everettpodcast.com for all the details.
Hey everyone, it's me. I'm back. It has definitely been a long time. The last episode I did was, back in October of 2025? Back when we lived up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Now we live in the Philadelphia area. Finally got everything all set back up. Noticing a little bit of echo in the room that I use now for my setup, but maybe we'll fix that. I'll play with some things, whatever. You can just either deal with it or whatever. So right about the time of the last podcast and currently, we have seen ourselves go through two unprecedented government shutdowns. And arguably, they're actually this second one is a continuation of the first one because Congress are incapable elected body of officials that really should all be just thrown out with the bathwater, decided to kick the can down the road. And so this is, yes, another 30-plus day shutdown, breaking record books, but it's just a continuation of the other one. So in reality, for fiscal year 2026, we have had basically a government shutdown for 80-plus days. Over half of the fiscal year has been marred by the incompetence of all elected congressional individuals. One party controls the entire government, yet they can't pull their heads out of their butts to do anything. They're incompetent fools, and they're just talking about the stupidest things. Meanwhile, we're going to war. We're doing all these things that are actually like increasing the national debt. You know, we've gone up by $5 trillion in the last year, but we're not going to pay, security workers at the airport. We're not going to pay the people that do security for the president. We're not going to pay the Coast Guard. We're not going to pay all these other things. But all these legit DEI hires for office cabinet positions are getting multi-million-dollar jets with bedrooms and bars so that they can go with their buddies and find the new islands that have all the children on them. I digress. So I want to talk about a very brief history of government shutdowns. And I found an interesting article on a website called the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. It's a nice little short, succinct read. Last updated November 13th of 2025. So it does have information from the original shutdown, not the current one. I'm sure that will be updated soon once it's actually over. But anywho, so shutdowns like we know them today, where funding stops and all mayhem kind of breaks out, and our wonderful government proves that they're just dumber than the rest of us, didn't actually start becoming a thing until after 1980. And I'm pretty sure the documents that are referenced in most government shutdown advices cite 1981 as the year that the precedence was standardized. So I'm going to do two things. Quick, I'll do the disliked AI overview from Google search, and then I'm going to read this gentleman's much more appropriately and credited breakdown of government shutdowns. So AI through Google I believe this is their Gemini product, says that the U.S. government shutdowns occur when Congress fails to pass an appropriations bill, leading to funding gaps that force non-essential services to close. While funding lapses occurred earlier, formal shutdowns began after 1980, with major instances including the 35-day shutdown in 2018 through 2019 and the 21-day shutdown in 95 through 96, and the 16-day shutdown in 2013. Some key historical shutdowns in the 1980s during the Reagan administration. Multiple short shutdowns occurred due to disagreements on spending and policy, marking the start of the modern shutdown era. In 1995 and 1996, during the Clinton administration, there were two shutdowns, 13 days and 21 days. They occurred over disagreements regarding federal spending priorities between President Clinton and the Republican-controlled Congress. In 2013, Obama administration had a 16-day shutdown that took place, centered on the disagreements over the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. You know, that not perfect, but much better than anything we had before. You know, before Obamacare and this Affordable Care Act, you know, enacted by the first black president of the United States of America, insurance companies' children could deny you for having a pre-existing condition. And guess what counted as pre-existing? If you worked at an employer, say McDonald's, and then they're like, hey, you have a heart murmur or a heart condition. And then you're like, guess what? I want a better job that pays more. I'm going to go to another company. And you went to the other company. And then the next company's insurance program was like, hey, we see you have this heart murmur or you're being treated for that. And you go, yeah, I have that condition. They can be like, you know what? You should have stayed at McDonald's because we're not going to cover it. It's pre-existing. Or maybe you were born with it. Oh, it's pre-existing. They could deny coverage for medication, procedures, and basically deny saving your life. Why do we have health insurance if they can deny helping you? That's the beauty. That's the gem of Obamacare, of the Affordable Care Act. Insurance companies had to take care of you. Insurance companies had to honor your coverage no matter where you chose to work. You weren't stuck at an employer for the rest of your life because you could actually get insurance by switching employers. You had rights. That was Obamacare. That's the heart of Obamacare. Was it perfectly deployed? No. Was the mandate of you have to have insurance or you pay this, stupid fee to the government? No, that was crap. That's a legit, issue. But Obamacare is not this big evil bill like these stupid Republicans want to say it is. It did a hell of a lot more good than anything they've ever shit out of their asses. Anyway, in 2018 and 2019, during the first Trump administration, there was the longest shutdown in U.S. history that lasted 35 days. In case you haven't been paying attention, I hate to break it to you, but that one actually is not the longest one. Lasted from December 21st, 2018 to January 25th, 2019, over funding for the border wall. Remember that? Oh, the big, beautiful wall, which we all know was perfectly completed and it was paid for by Mexico. And oh, what? I'm getting word that that's all bullshit. So then in 2025 through 2026, the Trump second presidency, we had the then longest shutdown, a 43-day shutdown occurred in late 2025, followed by another partial shutdown that began currently in February 2026. So background and causes, again, this is the AI overview in the Google search when you search history of government shutdowns in the U.S. Legal basis, shutdowns are rooted in an Anti-Deficiency Act, which prohibits federal agencies from operating without provided approved funding. Shifting interpretation, before the early 1980s, agencies rarely fully closed. Attorney General Benjamin Civiletti issued opinions in 1980 and 1981 requiring agencies to stop working during funding gaps except for emergencies and frequency. While there have been over 20 funding gaps since 1976, roughly 11 of these resulted in significant employee furloughs, according to the USA Facts article. And that was provided by, that last part, provided by the U.S. House of Representatives history page. AI overview says impacts: shutdowns cause federal employees to be furloughed, delay paychecks, and halt services such as national park operations, visa processing, and government studies, notes the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, which is then what took me to the article that I'm about to go over with you now. So this, again, is found from the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. It's an article entitled A Brief History of U.S. Government Shutdowns. I will link to it in the podcast description. The website, if you want to try exploring it for yourself while you're listening, is pgpf.org. Again, pgpf.org. Political disagreements over the national budget are not unique to the United States, but government shutdowns are, and have unfortunately occurred several times over the past few decades. Government shutdowns not only interrupt crucial services and programs, but they also impose costs on federal agencies. Here we explain the history of government shutdowns in the United States and how other countries avoid them. What is the statutory basis for a government shutdown? Before the 1980s, federal agencies simply kept operating when appropriations had expired, known as a funding gap. The agencies minimized all non-essential operations and obligations, believing Congress did not intend for those agencies to close down. Some of the activities that agencies would have refrained from during these periods were hiring, grant-making, and non-emergency travel. In the 1970s, appropriation legislation started getting tied to contentious policy issues, such as abortion and school integration. Sounds like something we're still dealing with. That caused 6 funding gaps in fiscal years 1977 to 1980, which ranged in duration from 8 days to 17 days. In 1980, reacting to those increasingly frequent funding gaps, President Carter asked the United States Attorney General, Benjamin Civiletti, to provide an opinion on how to interpret funding gaps in the context of Anti-Deficiency Act. The Anti-Deficiency Act prohibits agencies from obligating or expending federal funds before an appropriation is enacted or above the amount of specified in law. Civiletti issued 2 opinions about the interpretation of the Anti-Deficiency Act in 1980 and 1981, which shifted the norm from government agencies operating with limited capacity. The opinion stated that federal agencies may not spend money when there are no appropriations, with a few practical exceptions. One exception is for spending money to close agencies in an orderly way. Another exception is to allow spending when there is a connection between the agency's functioning and the safety of human life or the protection of property. There have been 15 funding gaps since Civiletti's opinion, and since many of those funding gaps occurred for a brief time over a weekend or there was not a widespread government disruption, 5 of those funding gaps, however, lasted 4 or more business days and broadly impacted government operations. The most recent shutdown became the longest of the 5 shutdowns and lasted 43 full days. From October 1st, 2025 to November 12th, 2025. Since 1981, there have been 5 major shutdowns. Fiscal year 1996, dates without appropriations were 11/14/95 to 11/18/95 for a total of 5 days. In 1996, December 16th, 95 through January 5th, 96 for a 21-day gap. In 2014, there was one on October 1st, 2013 to October 16th, 2013 for 16 days. In 2019, when I got hired, this was the one that was cited as the woe is me longest shutdown ever that was so hard for these office workers to bear. Bless their little hearts. I've been through 2 that have been longer. 2019, December 22nd, 2018 through January 24th, 2019 for 34 days. And then in 2020, fiscal year 2026, October 1st, 2025 through 11/12/2025, a total of 43 days. And currently, let me pull it up, my little spreadsheet. We are currently in a government shutdown that started on... Did I not build that tab? 2/14/26 equals today.
We'll be right back.
Are your family memories fading in a dusty box? VHS tapes don't last forever. Save those irreplaceable moments of the kids, grandparents, and family holidays before the tape degrades. I convert old VHS tapes to high-quality digital formats like MP4, so everyone in the family can easily share and watch them from their phones or TVs today. Here are the details. Just $40 a tape, includes setup, full real-time capture, and final editing. There are free delivery options. You can get your files via secure Google Drive link, or you can provide your own medium, such as a USB drive or DVD writable CDs. I'm local to the Southeast Pennsylvania area, from Allentown down to Philadelphia, but if you're interested in my services nationally, contact me and we can arrange for shipping and other methods to get those to me. Don't let your history fade away. Email me today to get started. Email vhs@everettmcconaughey.com or vhs@everettpodcast.com. Equals that minus that. So we are tied right now. We are at 43 days exactly for this current second shutdown of fiscal year 2025. So we are at a whopping total of, let me bring that back up here. So that was 43 days. We have been officially shut down under this incompetent Congress for a total of 86 days to date for fiscal year 2026. That is half of the acting fiscal year that they have been unable to do their jobs. If you did that at your employer, your ass would be fired faster than you could say, I'm sorry. All right, back to this wonderful article, The Brief History of U.S. Government Shutdowns. Do government shutdowns happen in other countries? Government shutdowns do not occur in peer countries because their governments do not react to a lapse in funding bills by shutting down operations. Instead, they implement short-term solutions, such as continuing to operate the government at the amount budgeted the year before, or longer-term solutions, such as holding elections to a new government so a new government can pass the annual budget. I really like that idea. You know what? It's a vote of confidence. If you can't pass a funding bill, guess what? You can't do your job. You shouldn't have been put in office. You all bluffed and lied. It's the art of the deal. Get the F out. You're fired. But no, we keep them in office and say, oh, Jim Risch, you're going to do good again, old boy. That motherfucker's been in office longer than I've been alive. And that says something. That man, Mike Crapo, Idaho, both of them need to go. Don't care if they were friends with my family or my father was chief of staff back in 92. Also stole some money from him, but whatever. I'm a little salty if you couldn't tell. In Germany, a federal parliamentary republic, delays in passing the annual budget are typical in election years. That does not stop the government from operating. Germany's laws states that if the legislature does not enact a budget before the start of the fiscal year, funding continues at the previous year's amount to maintain institutions, meet obligations, and continue construction projects, benefits, and services. Oh my God. You mean the government is supposed to be a service to the people? Wow. Groundbreaking. In the case that revenues and reserves cannot cover the costs, the government can borrow 25% of the previous year's budget. South Korea utilizes a presidential system, like the United States, and responds to delayed annual budgets similarly to Germany. If South Korea's legislature is late enacting a budget, a provisional budget called conforming to the budget of the previous year goes into effect to maintain and manage institutions established by law until the new budget is enacted. The United Kingdom, a parliamentary democracy and constitutional monarchy, has a different reaction to the inability to pass a budget. Failure to pass a budget can instigate a vote of no confidence and then an election. It becomes the new government's job to pass funding legislation. Some countries allow time for the process to play out, such as Germany and South Korea. Other countries identify the inability to pass a budget as a structural problem, and the current government, like in the United Kingdom, what those countries share is the understanding that governments must not shut down because of their legislature's impasse. And the conclusion: government shutdowns are expensive for the government, interrupt federal programs and services, and disrupt the federal workforce. Rather than engaging in short-term budget brinksmanship, policymakers should work on bipartisan solutions to put the United States on a long-term sustainable fiscal path. And that article, again, was updated November 13th, 2025. And if you'd like to read it for yourself, it is at the Peter G. Peterson Foundation website, pgbf.org. I'll link to it in the podcast descriptions. So there you have it. A very quick, lightly salted overview of the government shutdowns, brought to you by yours truly since 1981. Gosh, what a world our boomer parents lived in. You know, before 1989, they didn't have credit scores. They didn't have to pander to 3 companies to be able to get a car or a house. We've just all been turned into, margin profit lines on a spreadsheet. And people are just dying younger because these food companies are putting chemicals into our food and funneling money into the pharmaceutical industry. What is the government actually doing? Now, government agencies are hemorrhaging qualified staff and people so that these, DEI selections from TV networks that had poor ratings and couldn't cut it in their chosen profession now get to lead, the Pentagon? Okay. Grocery boy gets to be in charge of the anti-terrorism wing, and a plumber with an associate's degree gets to be the head of, immigrations enforcement. Yeah, sounds like quality people. All right, well, you have a good one. Don't forget, I am going to do the podcast that I have been putting out on social media about life after someone dies. But that process still continues to drag on in my own life, so I don't want to put it out prematurely and not have a complete picture for you. So give me a little bit more time on that. I think we are drawing finally to a close on things. The house just sold. I'm going to have some thoughts on all that stuff. But it has definitely been a long 6-month process since last September, since my mom passed and everything that we're going through with that process. So in order to give you the most complete description of what we've gone through and what you could expect in a similar situation, if your parents pass without a will or anything in place. I want you to have the most information. I feel like if I had put it out when I originally thought I was going to do it, you would be severely lacking some information. So already I can tell you I have so much more understanding about things than I did back then, and I'm happy that I haven't already put out a premature product. So my apologies for the delay. I know you've all been chomping at the bit. I wanted to give you something, so enjoy this wonderful government shutdown overview. And I hope real soon, in the next 90 days, I will be able to give you the podcast that I'm entitling Life After Death in Idaho. So until then, enjoy life. Remember to make the most of it. Turn off the news. Stop doom scrolling. Get away from social media. Don't be an advertising metric for them. Remember to go walk out on the grass, enjoy the sunshine, listen to water flow, talk to human beings around you that you appreciate, know, love, and enjoy being around. And if anyone's toxic in your family, cut them off. Wish them well in your mind and walk away. You owe nobody anything. We only get one life, and so many people are literally in an era of power tripping over trying to steal your joy, ruin your mood, and potentially harm your body by putting these negative emotions and thoughts in your mind. And you need to protect yourself. So until then, I wish you the best, and we'll all get through this in our own ways somehow. All right. Talk to you then.
Thank you for listening to Everything with Everett. Connect with Everett and other listeners on Facebook and Twitter at Everett Podcast. Everett would love to hear from you. Share your thoughts by emailing mystory@everettpodcast.com. You can also leave a voicemail or send a text message to 208-391-2808. Choose to listen, speak with kindness, and have a great day.